Live from Puerto Rico. Welcome, everybody. My name is Dayal, and I'm here with Kishore in sunny and warm Puerto Rico. And we're joined by our snowbird friend, Acyuta Gopi, who's in the snow trudged mountains of New York City. And we realize that everyone in our live audience here today is from a sunny place. We've got the Philippines, we've got Chile, we've got California, we've got Texas, we've got India, and then we've got New York with Achuta. How is it going on? If you're just listening, you can't see Achuta's got her snow gear on, her hat and her coat, and she's bundled up. How is it going, Achuta?
I just want that no one should forget my struggle and what I've done for the Vaishnav community this day.
I didn't even realize there was going to be a snowstorm. We were on the air train coming to the airport, and somebody was like, "Oh yeah, good thing you got your ticket today. A lot of flights are getting canceled tomorrow." I was like, "Really? There's a snowstorm?" It's like, "Okay, good luck."
Yeah, I also didn't know that there was going to be a snowstorm. And you guys really did fly out at a really good time because at 2 a.m. or somewhere around there, it just, it looked pretty. It looks pretty for 30 seconds, and then I want it to go away.
Yeah. Well, we went away.
No, come back.
We'll be back in a week. How you doing, Kishore?
I'm doing great. I mean, I'm happy to be here in Puerto Rico. I'm happy we missed the snowstorm. Um, yeah, I'm still feeling very, very spiritually recharged by just our conversations that we've been having with you, Achuta. It's been like such a gift to be with you this week, and all of these topics are just very fresh in my mind of surrender and of also something that's really been on my mind is just like the aspect of Sanga, because we left off yesterday talking about like this idea of seeing Krishna everywhere. Like, I remember Braj was here and he made that beautiful comment from Narayan Maharaj of like, the only problem is when where is Krishna? That's the only problem, right? But something I was really realizing, I was really appreciating the Sangha that this podcast creates, because I think it's easy to forget about Krishna, and it's easy um, to get caught up in all of the material stuff when we're alone and when we self-isolate. And on the other hand, when we are in Sangha and when we are with our spiritual family and friends, it's much easier to do that actually, and it feels wonderful. So thank you, Achita, for being with us here this week.
It is so much more fulfilling when you're with your friends, all of you together in Puerto Rico with tank tops, isn't it? It's so fulfilling.
Oh, Krishna. Where did we leave off yesterday? You were talking a little bit.
That's where we left off. We were talking about that beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita about Krishna being the thread underlying everything, right?
Pearls.
The pearls, yeah, the pearls rest on the thread. Um, and we were talking about exhaustion and how when we are tapping into our spiritual nature and that underlying thread, that we can work in our seva tirelessly and in our purpose tirelessly, but when we're caught in the material nature, we're just going to be constantly in that up and down of happiness and distress. Yeah, that's kind of where we left off, right? If I remember correctly, Achuta.
Yeah, and I do think that Sangha is a really good like lead-in topic for this entire thing, because we can think, devotional life, it's a solitary journey. At the end of your life, really you take yourself, right? You're not able to really take your family members, and there are all these lessons about renunciation and detachment. So where does Sangha actually fit in, and is it necessary? And I think it's actually completely vital for our spiritual lives. And, not just carte blanche, any Sangha, not just any kind of like happy relationships or any kind of community with friends, but you need like-minded people. So you were also saying Rupa Goswami gives so many wonderful pointers, which, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. But one of them is to associate with like-minded devotees. And I think that like-mindedness is something that we can get tripped up on, because we think, oh, you're a devotee, that's it, you're like-minded. No, no, no. Not all devotees are even going to think the same. So, I think that is a really wonderful topic, because I think that if you are Sangha deficient, it can definitely take a huge toll on your spiritual life and your spiritual journey. And then likewise, if you have too much of the wrong Sangha, like if you like hyper Sangha, uh,
Mhm.
kalosis or whatever, like if you have too much Sangha and it's the wrong kind, it will also do such incredible damage to your spiritual life.
Yeah, I struggle with this one a lot because I sometimes get in a place where, we talk so much about not caring what other people think about us, or not needing validation outside of ourselves, or not doing things in order to please other people, or in order to get the claps or applause from other people. Yet at the same time, we want to have a strong devotional sangha, and there's certain people that we do want to like us. We do want to have them in our favor, and we do want to kind of like impress them or win them over in some way, shape, form, or another. So it's like it becomes this really, really tough thing to balance. And I think that in devotional circles, the idea of that even being learning how to discern between that, like, not everybody needs to like me necessarily, because sometimes it's like, okay, like there are, well, I need devotees, I need spiritual sangha. Well, it needs to be like-minded people. And sometimes I'm trying to win over the favor of somebody that's not necessarily like-minded. Like, obviously, like if they're not naturally drawn to me and we're not feeling that connection, then why am I trying to force something that isn't going to work anyways? And why don't I just learn to understand who I am and naturally let certain things? I think what I hear experience a lot is that people feel like, well, like it's hard to find those like-minded people.
Mm.
Mm.
And so I just kind of spend my time searching after, and kind of just being in this place of despair. Well, it's like, well, the people that I think are like-minded or would like to be like-minded are actually not in my vicinity, or they don't necessarily like. There was one time there was this 80s rock band song called Love Stinks.
Mhm.
That wasn't the name of the rock band, but they had this song called Love Stinks. It was like, he loves her and she loves him and he loves somebody else. He just can't win. And it's just kind of this thing. So it goes round and round. This idea of just like, and I think that friendships also kind of get in that type of circle also, like how like, and so I think it can be really, really tough where we, in the name of wanting Sangha, we end up just trying to like
Mm.
live our life in such a way where we're just trying to please other people because we need that. So we kind of, we
Huh?
turn away from the material world because I don't care what people think anymore. And then I enter into my spiritual circles. And now all of a sudden I got to get these spiritual people to like me. And so I'm just transferring all it over here. And I'm just feeling that same sense of exhaustion and emptiness and insecurity and feeling left out on the outside looking in. I'm in New York in the snow. Everyone's in Puerto Rico. And we're in Puerto Rico thinking everyone's in India. And everyone in India is thinking that we're here. And it's like, where does,
Yeah. No, that that's absolutely true. And I think that relationships in general, like the word relationship, kind of we tend to think of it only as romantic. And then we think that how we are in a romantic relationship is just how we are in a romantic relationship. But really, that's just kind of how we are. So I feel like relationships get a bad rap sometimes, especially within bhakti. As much as we know that our devotional lives are like hinging on relationships, especially our relationship with Krishna, it's like the relationships with everybody else get such a bad rap. It's like, what? You have a family? Renounce that. Like, you've got to know that at some point you've got to be detached. Like, I remember one time my brother had just gotten engaged to Janaki, and he spoke to a friend who at that time was a brahmachari. He's not a brahmachari anymore. And this friend said, "You like her?" And Ananta said, "Yeah." And he said, "She's a Mataji." And Ananta was like, "Well, I'd hope so, because I don't think my mom's ready, but like, I, I should hope so. Like, what was I going to do? What was happening? Like, what?" So, and there's just such a mindset sometimes of this ideology that these
Mm.
relationships are just going to drag me away from Krishna. And that doesn't have to be the case. There's the examples like Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, I think. And he wasn't friends with anybody. And I think he would go so far to an extent as to be left alone to try and like chant in like latrines and stuff. Like total outhouse. He was not friends with anybody, but he did have one person that he always trusted, and that was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And no matter how far in isolation he went, he would make sure that he was still close to like Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. And there was one person he'd allow to come see him, and that was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And there was one time, like, he had changed his dress. Like, he was dressing like a sannyasi, or like really like just kind of mendicant loincloth. And then he had changed it. And I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur came and he asked him, he's like, what is this all about? And I think the conversation went, Gorkishore Das Babaji was saying, what do you think about it? He said, the world will judge me and they'll think that I've gone materialistic, because he started dressing like a householder. And so he's like, the world will think maybe I've gone materialistic, or maybe I've changed my principles. But what do you think? Because I feel like you know me. And if there's any difference in what you think, then that's what matters to me. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was, I don't care. You're doing you. Go ahead.
You look good.
He's like, do whatever
You can just
want.
just scroll a filter on there, and it'll just kind of it'll smooth out.
Yeah. So, they had this lifelong relationship. And what I've learned from looking at the lives of different teachers and Vaishnav acharyas and spiritualists is even the ones that are so isolated usually have at least one person that they trust, that they'll let in to their inner life, their inner spirituality, and they'll keep that relationship. So I think that, we can't get away from wanting relationships. It's part of our intrinsic soul nature. And I don't think we should get away from wanting relationships. And that the way we find ourselves chasing relationships, even romantically, will be the same way that we wind up chasing relationships outside of a romantic relationship. It's how we are. And we have to try and condition ourselves to understand that if we are not vibing with somebody, it doesn't make me any less of a devotee. It doesn't make them any less of a devotee. And we can have divergent paths, and that's totally cool. I just want to find my tribe.
I've got a few things to say, but I want to check in with you, Kishore.
I was just gonna say that I think it's such a beautiful conversation about Sangha, about devotional family, because something that was coming up for me while you were speaking, Acyuta, was this idea of being a devotee, being a devotee, whatever that means, and then the image of being spiritual, or the image of being a devotee. And I think that that's a really interesting juxtaposition, because when we were talking about surrender, and we were talking about what does surrender actually look like, or what does it entail, And I think when we think of devotional life, or when we think of bhakti, it's there's an image that comes up of what it means to be a good bhakta, or what it means to okay, I'm here, I'm wearing this, I'm chanting this, I'm doing like this, I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing. So why isn't it happening? Why aren't I achieving bhakti prem? Where's Krishna? And I think that sometimes can get a little bit frustrating. And something that has been really helpful for me in that, not achieving bhakti prem, but just being a little bit more deep, is what you mentioned, Acyuta, is really, really diving deeper into those relationships that are like-minded. And I really love that example that you gave of Gorkishore Das Babaji, because it's I do think we have to get to a certain point where it's just I don't care what others think about me, I'm trying to have this genuine journey in Krishna consciousness, and I have my people, and I'm gonna be close with my people, and what they think, I'm gonna hold that to the highest standard. And of course, we are respectful to everyone, but I think that idea of what it looks to surrender versus what is my individual surrender, right? Because it's Instagram surrendering on the beach with the coconuts, it's that's one thing, which we'll be surrendering a lot.
We have coconuts, people. We got coconuts.
If you see a photo of me on Instagram with a coconut talking about surrender, you'll know why.
No, thank you for that, Kishore, and thank you also, Acyuta, for leading us into here. There was two things that were coming to mind as you were speaking also, Acyuta, was the idea of relationships carrying over, but I think that we don't give up relationships, but the way that we approach relationships becomes very, very different. And I was, you know, I give tremendous amounts of power over to other people. You know, we're talking about like, oh, I don't care what other people think. We kind of go to this place of like, my sense of self is completely dependent upon what other people think of me, to like, I don't care at all what other people think of me. And I don't think it's either of those extremes really, because we naturally do care what certain people think of us. But I think it's determining who those certain people are that makes the world a difference. You know, people say like, I just want people to like me. I ask that question all the time. People tell me that. And I say, okay, which people? How many people?
Yeah.
Like, how many people do you want to like you? 2, 10, 100, a million? Like, how many is it? You know, and which people? Like, is there any specific people or any number of people? Like, why does that particular person all of a sudden matter? You know, somebody all of a sudden says something mean to me, or doesn't like what I did, or isn't approving of a certain behavior or something like that, et cetera. And all of a sudden it really bothers me. I'm like, wait a second. When did I hand over power to that particular person to determine like, yes, you are now the judge of my character. You're now the judge of my worthiness as an individual. And we just do it all the time, just like mindlessly, you know?
Yeah.
It happens in the comment section of a post. It happens in, you know, wherever it is. And somebody says, oh, like they don't the way that you look. They don't like they said, they don't like this podcast, you know, like whatever it is. And all of a sudden it's like, I roll from Acyuta. She's like, nobody doesn't like this podcast. And so, you know what I mean? It's like, wait a sec. And then, you know, like, let's say I share an idea with somebody, they don't like it. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, just questioning the amount of power that they give to other people. And it was reminding me of a post I did a while ago, where it was a prayer that, may I stop, dictating my life choices based off of the opinions of people who don't share my values. And it was from the Bhagavad Gita in the end of the second chapter, that what is nighttime for the introspective sage is daytime for the materialistic person, and vice versa. And similarly, also even in spiritual life, like like-minded devotees, as you mentioned. And so I was just kind of mulling over, is that a word? Mulling over? Mulling over this kind of sense of just the amount of power I give away to other people is enormous and exhausting and unstable.
I've had this conversation so much with every single one of my family members. I think we, as all like creative people, it's so difficult. Okay, number one, I feel like it kind of goes into this idea of humility and like a humble devotee. I'm like, humility doesn't mean we just blindly listen to everybody. Like we've got to take that out of the definition of what humility should mean. It does not mean that we should just blindly listen to everybody who says Hare Krishna one time. But also, like, you know, we see it. Somebody will say something negative. Somebody, even somebody in an authoritative position, will say something like, I think we could have done this differently. And then next thing you know, I've seen people change up their entire seva. You know, they've changed up their entire aesthetic. And I'm like, wait a second. At what point did we allow this one comment to change everything about me? Like you said, like this is kind of, it's a little ludicrous and ridiculous, but we do it because there's such a need for that validation and acceptance. Like we are trudging forth, really looking for acceptance wherever we can find it.
Yeah.
I think if there's like one need that people are really grasping for, they want this acceptance. And so there's that, you know, we can do hard things podcast.
I love Glennon Doyle. And I've also determined like I'm trudging and for some reason I've decided that I'm going to get it in you.
Yeah.
That you've got it. Like I'm standing outside your doors with guns blazing saying, stick them up. I know there's treasure in there. I'm coming in to find it. I know the acceptance and the validation and the sense of security and comfort exists on the other side of a comment that I'm looking from you. And it's just like, whoa, like I've assumed all of that you're going to give that to me. And I was also thinking that that's in the definitions of Rupa Goswami gives of pure bhakti in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The last one, I always mess this up. Krishna Karshini. What is it, Jai Jagannath? He's got headphones on. The sixth quality of pure bhakti is it attracts Krishna.
Yeah.
It attracts Krishna. And so, therefore, Krishna, it says, is so reluctant to give it out. Because living in a place where I care what somebody else thinks about me and I value that person, it's extraordinarily destabilizing to my sense of self, because now I'm giving that over to you.
Yeah.
And Krishna himself is so wary, is so guarded to give away pure bhakti to another person, because it has the ability to control even him. Because now he's saying, I care what my devotees think. I care what my devotee says about me. I don't care what anybody else says about me. But my devotees, it's so care. And so that sense of even Krishna is so careful, and it does that to even him, that ourselves also, like, being really, really cautious and careful of, like, which opinions, not that I don't care what, because for me, it's just like, I don't care what people think, what others think, what there's always the they said, and they're saying, and this, and who's the they, who's the them. It's not that I don't care what people think. It's that there are certain people that I've determined that I really care what they think, and I'm going to run things by them, whether it's
Yeah.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur or whoever.
Yeah.
Find your Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Yeah. And I was just going to say that I think that this is one of the reasons why in bhakti, the idea of guru is so important, because there's endless lists of the qualities of what makes one a bona fide guru. And when we're looking at those lists, it's like that's what should be taken into account. So if I'm now with someone, whether that be a friend or whether that be an acquaintance, and they don't necessarily have those qualities, it's like, okay, I understand that we're at a similar level. Neither of us are at the level of the guru. So I'm not necessarily like going to listen to every single word that you say. The verse that's coming to my mind is the first verse of the Nectar of Instruction, the Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarapasta Vegam, right? So the guru is someone that can control the urges of the tongue, of the mind, of anger, of the genitals, of the belly, right? And it's like when we just like really like keep it real, and we get down to business, like I know that I don't have control over my tongue. Like yesterday we arrived in Puerto Rico and we were just like ravenous. We were like hungry. We were just like, we need to eat. It was a holiday over here. Everything was closed. We were just calling everywhere, like, what's open? What's open? What is this? What's happening? And it's like, when we really get real, it's like control over my mind, control over my anger. Like that is something that is not something that the majority of us have. Maybe we have one, maybe we have two, like this, maybe. But I think that that's why the idea of saints and gurus and the lineage and really being able to listen to these forefathers and devotees that have that qualification, and that puts us in the right mindset of like, okay, this is what I'm listening to. I'm not going to listen to that comment, because the last thing I'll say about this is that like when we were talking about this yesterday, material versus spiritual platform, when I give someone that power, right, through the Facebook comment or Instagram comment or whatever, to validate me, to have power over me, then basically what's happening in a nutshell is I'm forgetting my relationship with Krishna, because I am giving power to that person's mental, psychosomatic complex, right? I'm not even connecting with them at the level of the soul. I'm just giving power to their opinions, their mind, right? Not necessarily Krishna that exists within their heart. And then I'm just driving myself into material platform and I'm forgetting about Krishna. Yeah.
I usually like to control my senses for a moment and then immediately elevate myself to saint status.
I like to look at it as like fractions, and with Krishna's opulences, I'm always like, I'm operating at a strong like 3 out of 6 today. Of opulent, we're kind of, it's on the good days we can reach like a 4.5
batting
opulence
500.
level.
That's pretty good. This morning I happened to wake up kind of early, and I woke up and we were with Jai Jagannath here, and he was already awake and he was kind of chanting, and I went down, I sat next to him, and it was before the sunrise. We were chanting, just chanting, and then the sun got up, and then after like an hour or so, he woke up, and I pulled him over and I was like, do you ever feel this way? Like one day, like you never are on top of it any other day. Like you're sleeping in late, you're doing your thing. And then one day you get up early and then you're looking around at everybody else is thinking like, They're just wasting their lives
In the lap of the
in
wicked
the lap of
Maya.
illusion. Like, how long are people going to sleep for?
I
What
mean,
is
Mahaprabhu came for you people.
Mind you, while they were chanting in the kitchen, I was asleep on the couch next to them.
Let me tell you, this podcast had me feeling like a pure devotee all week. I was up early. Like I was like, oh wait, I had to like I was like, oh, I have to make sure I do things before that because I
you
can't do
get
it
it?
after. And I was like,
You get it
I
right
was
on
on
one.
it. Okay, this is why I like this podcast. They make me look great.
Me too. Right before today, I was having to answer a bunch of emails because we're here for a retreat with Janavi. So I'm organizing. And I was like, before the podcast, I got to chant at least 2 rounds, at least 2 rounds before the podcast. I have to. So I've also been feeling like a pure devotee with this.
Yeah,
podcast.
see, I mean,
You get it right one day, and all of a sudden there's just contempt for everybody else.
yeah, I've seen that happen so many times with my friends. They'll start chanting regularly, and then they come and they're like, do you know, if we chant like this, Krishna will descend into our lives. And I'm always like, bro, you started chanting last week, man. Like, let's keep it consistent. Like, but so funny enough, one, there's that quote, Glennon Doyle, we have to stop asking people for directions to places they've never been.
Yes.
Okay. That one. It's like,
Yes.
kind of look at where consider the source, right? There's that. And then two, what I really love is picking a guru, picking a partner, picking anybody in your life. Krishna's like, ask questions, and then listen out for the answers. Like that hearing submissively, I really feel like he's like, and then suss out the answers. Like, don't just like, oh, don't hear what you want to hear. Actually listen to what that person said and see if it actually lines up with your spiritual journey. And then, like you said, take shelter in the fact that even if it's just one person that gets you, that's totally enough. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he first decided to stop being an academic and start being a mystic yogi, the change for everybody else was kind of intense. And there were all kinds of rumors going around about him. Like, we think he's crazy. Maybe he's epileptic. Like, what's going to happen? Like, they were giving Sachi Devi all kinds of remedies because that's what happens. Like, this is even before social media. So, just it's normal. If you have a cough, that somebody's going to tell you to do all kinds of remedies with like banana
He was
peel.
canceled before cancel culture was a thing.
Yeah. So like they were giving all kinds of remedies, tie him up at night, do all kinds, whatever. And so Mahaprabhu is hearing all of this. And finally he goes to Srivas and he says, Srivas, what do you think? Am I epileptic? Am I crazy? Like, what do I do? And Srivas looked and he said, this is love of God. This is all I've ever been praying for you to have. And Mahaprabhu fires back with, I'm so glad you said that. Because if you just said I was crazy, I was going to throw myself in the Ganga. I'm like, no pressure. What? How do you? But so, even Mahaprabhu has his people that he's like, I'm going to run this idea past you. Do you think it's gone too far? Srivas is like, no, this is what we want.
Yeah, well, I think I love that, and we're running out of time here. But I was also, because I was just talking about this with somebody else the other day, about sometimes our personal growth feels like a betrayal to other people who depend on an older version of themselves in order to continue the old narrative that they have in their life. Like, we become players in other people's movies. And in order for people to uphold certain stories of themselves, they need us to play a certain version of ourselves that we are outgrowing. And so more than anybody, the people that get us, quote unquote, are the people that are willing to accept and allow for us to change and grow over time. So David Rico wrote this book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships, and he has the 5 A's of love, and the last one and the hardest one is allowing. Like allowing somebody out, like loving somebody while fully allowing them to be the full version of themselves rather than needing them to be a certain part of your own story. And so I think that, for us, having the courage to grow spiritually and to grow in our lives without the fear that we're leaving somebody behind or losing somebody in the process, is difficult, but it's a necessary part. And the people that allow for that, that's our tribe.
And
Those are
that's
our people.
Krishna. Like, that's Krishna. To the extreme degree, Krishna's like, look, whether you outgrow me, whether you outgrow devotion, whether you forget me, he's going to allow us to be exactly who we feel we want to be in any given lifetime, in any given moment. And he's like, I love you that much. And we're all like, you don't love me. Why'd you leave me in a cold, frozen tundra? Why didn't you move me to India if you loved me? You'd show me that things would be better. He's like, you wanted this. I was just allowing you. Why did you give me free will then?
Mm,
Because
yeah.
that's love.
Mm. Loving it, loving it. We are fresh out of time here, and we're going to call upon our scribe, Kimberly, or anybody who wants to write. What are some takeaways we got here? If there's any takeaways, anybody who wants to write in the chat, our Kimberly's always fresh with a few takeaways. What are we taking home today, Kimberly?
All right. Thank you so much for the great week of discussions. I took away today the appreciation for this Sangha and community. Our intrinsic soul nature wants relationships. Find a tribe that you can vibe with. Reevaluate who you give away your power to. Consider the source, and one quality friend is enough.
Reevaluate who you give your power to. That's a big one for me. I'm taking that one away. Any closing words with you guys, Kishore, Acyuta?
This was just the best first week of the podcast I could have possibly asked for. Really, really, Acyuta, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm so grateful that you spent the week with us. It's like talking with a friend. We see each other all the time at Kirtan, but I think this is our first time really just like getting into it and having this kind of conversation. And it's so fun. And it's really like, I knew you in so many past lifetimes. And so grateful for you and all of your wisdom and joy and laughter. Really, it was the best. Thank you so much.
Well, you can't get rid of me because if I leave the podcast, I'm not sure if I'll chant my japa in the morning. So,
She has the Zoom link. She's like, I have the Zoom link, guys.
oh yeah, I'll be here. You can't get rid of me now.
Totally. We this is not the last for sure. This is going to be a regular feature. And so we'll keep you guys all posted. Thank you guys for joining us live. Thank you for listening in. Those listening in, love you guys so much. And we will see you all next time. Those listening live, we don't have a show Saturday and Sunday. We'll be back on Monday. Bye-bye. Take care. Love you guys.